right, everyone. Welcome to the Stoa. Today we have Jared Lucas, aka Capslap, visiting us. Jared is a DJ who is famous for his mashups and mixes, but why he's here today is because he's really at the delicious intersection between two movements that are well known to everyone here, I imagine. But they're not really speaking to each other quite well, and that's Web3 and Liminal Web, which might be considered the exterior and interior of the new thing that is being built, which I imagine Jared will be speaking about today. So how today is going to work is I'm going to take in Jared a moment. He's going to open up, share his thoughts about this Liminal Web 3, and then we're going to have a discussion, open conversation. So if you have questions anytime or any shares, just put them in the chat. I'll call on you, can unmute yourself and you can ask your question or share your thought to the Stoa. And this will be on YouTube. So if you don't want to be on YouTube, just indicate that and I'll read your question on your behalf. And then at the top of the hour, Jared's going to kind of share an idea that he has, and we're going to stop the record button and have an open conversation for about maybe 30 minutes or so. So that being said, I'll give Jared co-host access. And welcome to the Stoa, my friend.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Very funny when you started that music. I was like, what? Where is that? What? It was a strange mix of context for me. So very funny. I appreciated it. Thank you for having me. And again, I am very much not an expert in almost anything. So I want to make sure I kind of preface that and just want to introduce some ideas and allow for further exploration at your own time to kind of dive in here. So here is my presentation. Overall, if you go to capslap.xyz, I have all of the links and resources to kind of dive in a little bit more. So first off, the liminal web, there's a lot of different people here. So I want to make sure there's some kind of shared context. Roughly speaking, the Stoa and a lot of these other podcasts are part of this loose grouping that Joe Lightfoot dubbed the Liminal Web. I thought it was a really cool effort to name something that's unnameable, right? And I would roughly say that these are the thinkers. But also there's a little section here, Web3, that he introduced. They are very much the doers. There's a lot of action happening in Web3 right now. So my kind of purpose here is to try to link them together. Roughly, my outline describing what Web3 actually is. I'm going to touch on, the common question, isn't blockchain bad for the environment? I'm not going to have too much time for that, but I want to at least get that out there. Go over what's happening now, why we should care about it, and then also how we can kind of get involved at the very end. So let's dive right in. What is Web3? Web 1 was 1991 to 2004, and that's roughly read. There's the things that you remember, AOL, Yahoo, MSN. Web 2, around 2005 kicked in, that's read and write. So you're actually interacting. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You're actually inputting information into the internet to get back and interact with it. Web 3 is happening around now, and that is read, write, own. So you're introducing the layer of value and provenance to this kind of stack. That's MetaMask, Ethereum name service, OpenSea. All of these are Web3 enabled websites. So this kind of framework, again, this is not my framework. I saw it from Chris Dixon, who saw it from someone else on Twitter, but just introducing this idea. Blockchain, isn't it bad for the environment? Really long conversation about this, but proof of work is kind of the central idea behind it of why it's actually necessary. So if you want to dive in more, check out Robert Breedlove. He's very much like a maximalist when it comes to proof of work, and especially Bitcoin. I like his idea that Bitcoin is kind of the archetypal version of this kind of stuff. It's the most extreme version of why a computer needs to do work in order to secure value in a network. So dive in there if you have any deeper questions on that. And we can also talk about that when we break to discuss. So what is actually happening now? One section is DeFi. This is from the Coinbase website. DeFi, or decentralized finance, is an umbrella term for financial services on public blockchains, primarily Ethereum. With DeFi, you can do most of the things that banks support: earn interest, borrow, lend, buy insurance, trade derivatives, trade assets, and more, but it's faster and doesn't require paperwork or a third party. As with crypto generally, DeFi is global, peer-to-peer, meaning directly between two people, not routed through a centralized system, pseudonymous and open to all, or pseudonymous and open to all. So that's via Coinbase. We could talk about that a little bit later, but that is the broad strokes. NFTs. What's happening now? I'm going to go through a couple I'm going to walk through this here. So fungible goods are things like grain, oil, and water. So it's one barrel of oil is roughly equal to another. You can easily interchange those things. That means it's fungible. Non-fungible goods are things like baseball cards, art, and music. They actually have individual value. So there's no way to directly interchange these things. Fungible tokens are Bitcoin, Ethereum. One Ethereum is just as good as another. Roughly one Bitcoin is just as good as another. Non-fungible tokens are things like Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks. They are specifically, it could be on a lot of different chains, but the ones that were most kind of, I don't want to go too deep into the technical specifics yet. We can get in there later, but that's kind of the broad strokes. So an NFT is a unique digital asset. That's the big takeaway here. So DAOs, what are those? Decentralized autonomous organization. What does that roughly mean? They're internet communities with a shared cap table and bank account. That's from someone named Cooper Turley, an incredible resource in the space. A cap table, for those that don't know, is roughly the ownership that you have within an organization. If I sell 50% of my company to Peter Limberg, then Peter Limberg will have 50% on the cap table, that kind of thing. So DAOs are basically internet communities with shared ownership and a bank account to do things. So why should we care, roughly? This really, really awesome concept was introduced to me by Jordan Hall about rectification of names. I thought this was incredible. This is a Confucian thing. When Confucian was asked what he would do if he was a governor, he said that he would rectify the names to make words correspond to reality. I think that was a really cool concept. I barely grasp it, but I think just roughly, when we think of education right now, we think of, there's a lot of negative context. There's institutionalization that is like old and just not great. So what if we could kind of, bring a new sense to this word through organizing together? That's something that I'm really passionate about. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in the liminal web to actually bring something like that to life. Enabling the religion that's not a religion. This is a John Vervaekean concept. This was a tweet from someone named Gabby Goldberg, who's in the Web3 space, that I thought was a really kind of interesting crossover here. Every community, whether it be crypto, religion, you name it, has three things: identity. So I own a crypto Venetian, or I am Jewish, etc. Initiation. I minted at BRT Moments. I had a bat mitzvah, etc. And also ritual. I say GM. I observe Shabbat, etc. So regardless of community, you need all three. I thought that was a really interesting framing. And the fact that there's such a passionate group of people right now behind this Web3 movement, it actually is really enabling something to emerge. And so that's food for thought there. I don't know, we can kind of dive into that later as well. And then also Sangha with the bank account. I know there's a phrase, the next Buddha is a Sangha, which is kind of roughly correlating to like a lot of different wise people interacting together in community. So imagine, what if you had Marcus Aurelius, Buddha, Gandhi, Jesus, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, and Cleopatra all texting together, and they also just had a ton of money today, what would they do, right? That's like just imagine that kind of energy around bringing the liminal web into Web3. So how do we get involved? I did a Web3 onboarding paper that is on capslap.xyz or here, if you want to check it out, to actually get the specific, to actually get involved into the Web3 process, contribute to the Liminal DAO proposal, which we're going to touch on a little bit later after we get some questions and feedback, and then register to be notified when it launches. I have a specific link that you can actually kind of get involved if you'd like. I'm really excited to kind of bring something like this to life, and I'd love to hear thoughts and feedback. So that is it.
Awesome. So if you have any questions or any shares, just put them in the chat. I'll call on you in a moment, and you can just ask your question to Jared. So maybe I'll warm up you with a question. So like that common understanding of like the Web3 is a movement to reclaim the internet. And what's kind of cool with the liminal web, perhaps it could offer an alternative framing or a deeper framing. And actually, like the word liminal was from this guy, Arnold van Gennep, from the Rites of Passage. And he was an ethnographer who studied rites of passages. And liminality is like the middle stage of the rite of passage, where there's a lot of ambiguity and disorientation is experienced. And the liminal web is all about being in between games right now, game A, game B, and we're like this liminal state of rite of passage. And like the current sense makers is like the new storytellers to help us get through this. So I'm curious, how do you see the new sense maker / storytellers of the liminal web help with this transition phase between Web 2, Web 3, and then the larger game A, game B?
I mean, that's the $1 trillion question, right? Like how do we actually get involved? How do we actually influence in any way what is being built currently? So to me, the kind of easiest way that I can see that happening is by kind of just getting involved in using the tools that are being built. Because right now the tools are being built without any kind of, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of like Jordan Hall really had an incredible analogy about a barren field, and the first things that grow in that barren field are weeds. So they're highly competitive. They're hard to kill, but when they die out, they actually provide infrastructure for the soil. And that kind of mentality is where Web3 is right now. It's in the weeds phase. So I believe that the liminal web, if we can kind of do it right, can formulate or come together in using the tools to kind of form an anti-rivalrous relationship between all of the different liminal platforms, and like, I don't know, be more, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the actual proposal, but to bring wisdom to the way that these tools are being used, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and my follow-up questions are going to just directly lead to your proposal. So let's take in some people who are putting the questions in the chat. Babylon, if you want to unmute yourself and read your question. And if Jared doesn't have the answer to these questions, it could be a question for the room.
Great.
Babylon, are you there?
Hi, yeah. So if Web 1.0 mostly took place in HTTP and Web 2.0 was a lot of cascading style sheets in PHP, would you say that Web 3 is Solidity or any other particular language? If I'm trying to be involved in tool building, what tools do you use to start tool building?
Incredible question. I think it is definitely early to say this definitively, but I would my gut is saying Solidity and Rust in general. So Solidity because of Ethereum. There's a huge kind of community that is building up around Ethereum development and a lot of really incredible experiments there. But also something like Solana is the kind of easier way to get involved, if that makes sense. So it's not as the quote unquote gas fees are a lot less, if not basically just non-existent on Solana, because Solana is a proof of stake versus proof of work. A lot of nerdy stuff in there, but I would say best bet that I can tell, my sense of it is for the moment, Ethereum has a significant momentum behind it.
Any follow-up question, Babylon? If not, then let's move to Vlad. Vlad, you had a question.
Yeah, hello. I think I'm gonna read it verbatim. I feel we have to unite all the game B nodes toward the central one. I think there's too much nomenclature, too many different facets like climate, technology, meaning that different ambassadors address, but they're too scattered. I mean, I think we discover them just going from one podcast to another, just following the person we like. And I don't know, how do you see this? I think we need a central hub, not an ideological centralization, but just, I don't know, as a way to compete in the market of attention. That's sort of my question.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. You hit it on the nail on the head there. We are very much dispersed as a group right now. It's very hard to, gather any kind of significant committal to one group or another. Just paying attention to the whole thing is so hard, but we all have a very kind of common mission, common vision, common vocabulary. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, I can say game B and people understand it. So I think there's somebody named Balaji who has a really great kind of framing about just innovation, like unbundling and rebundling. So anytime, newspapers were unbundled to tweets, which got rebundled to tweet threads, right? So that anytime you want to kind of innovate something, think about unbundling, rebundling. Right now, the liminal web, quote unquote, is very much unbundled. So if there is a way to rebundle it in such a way that it harnesses the potential energy there in a anti-rivalrous way with the game B ideals in mind, there's a lot of potential. So yeah, I don't know, does that answer roughly the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Vlad. I'm going to read Kevin Flowers' question on his behalf. What are your thoughts on the Holochain framework as an alternative backbone for Web3? The benefits of the community ledger seem to be better for avoiding the governance issues with blockchain, as far as I can tell at the moment.
I love Holochain. I've been a huge proponent for a long time. I met Moritz Bierling in 2018, maybe. And I mean, Holochain is so far ahead of its time, but I think it's too early. And I say that because people are just barely able to grasp the ideas behind blockchain as it stands. So with Holochain, I mean, it really does take a lot of a big shift in perspectives. If I had the choice, I'd love to, build up on Holochain versus something like Ethereum, but we're not there yet culturally, like the wave, right? That's going to be a very large tsunami. Right now, the first wave that's coming through is this kind of Web3 Ethereum thing. So whatever we can do to kind of ride that wave, I think is the best, best use of our resources at the moment, at least like a V1, right? And the V2 can be on something like Holochain with, a lot of different things there. So huge fan. Yeah.
Kevin's on the bus, so he can't ask a follow-up question, but we got another Kevin Deland. Kevin, do you want to ask your question?
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, good. I wonder what the relationship is between like bringing in attention and money from like sort of big projects, right? Like, I feel like a lot of there's like an obscene amount of existing like capital like that was in crypto right now that was owned by like the early adopters, and much of it is going towards like big NFT projects like Bored Apes and Crypto Punks, Art Blocks, etc. Like, is there? It feels like part of the sort of game A, game B dance would bring over like some of those people into game B, and I wonder what the like the relationship is, um, like the benefit to like drawing attention from like these big energy projects. And it seems like there's a benefit, but then there's also a trade-off because like once you bring in the the weeds and the speculators, like it's like then stuff can go to the moon. Your gas fees are just out of control, and the people who are actually part of the community like get priced out. So I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wild situation right now. It's definitely not. I mean, we're still very early in this process, and onboarding the average person into this world is kind of, it's very cost prohibitive, especially with proof of work and layer 1 Ethereum. But things like Polygon, the roll up, like a layer 2, there's a lot less. I mean, basically, it's almost negligible gas fees, and it still functions in the same ecosystem. So, but I do think you called out an incredible, a really good point in that there are so many of these people that are the quote unquote weeds, right? But the people that are doing these incredibly, competitive games and earning a ton of capital, but still don't necessarily have much, they might not have a deeper sense of meaning in their life, right? So like what does the liminal web bring to this whole equation is like a deep sense of meaning. And the more you kind of dig into this world, the more you kind of feel that and understand that. So to even set up a structure such that even a couple people from this world, from the traditional Web3 world, can understand why the liminal web is worth paying attention to, and kind of infusing a little bit of capital in there, right? Like we basically just have to kind of get the structures and the framework in place to allow for a deeper interaction. I guess that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Bored Ape Yacht Club is literally just like it's like
that's incredible. Yeah,
hedonist like nihilism. It's like, oh, we're Bored Apes, we're just gonna like own these stupid JPEGs of.
I mean, some of the innovation there is unbelievable, though. I mean, like it makes so much sense why you would be a member, right? Like, it was essentially a lottery in the beginning. So you just had to know someone to even know that this thing was a project. It was maybe $200 to mint it. Now each one is going for 60, 70 Ethereum, which is what, $300,000 ish per Bored Ape. And each person who holds a Bored Ape, they got airdropped these serums that turned their apes into mutants that you can sell for $40,000 a piece now, because everyone wants to be a part of this kind of ecosystem. So it's a really unbelievable thing that emerged out of that. But what you can take away from that is like the raw potential for interacting with the world, and the shift in value from just a number in your bank account to an image, an icon. Having a Bored Ape avatar is saying a lot of things. You're either a crypto early adopter or you're extremely wealthy. Like, there's these signaling things that are developing in the world right now, and you can make as many judgments as you want about it, but it's happening. So how do we signal as a group what the liminal web stands for together, and how do we do it? How do we do it carefully? How do we do it thoughtfully? How do we do it without just trying to be extractive and quote unquote capitalistic, right? How do we actually I mean, what are the potentials for creating a group that is truly, I don't know, it's hard to put words to it, but I think there's so much potential that is kind of that is here, that it'd be a shame not to tap into it and see what happens.
Thanks, Kevin. So we got a bunch of questions. Let's go with Aiden and Maya. Aiden, if you can ask your question. Aiden, are you here?
Yep. Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Good. How you guys?
Good.
Sweet. Yeah, my question was really just around the DAO. Well, it was around, I had quite a few questions, but we'll just keep it on the DAO. I know you said you were going to go into it a little bit more before later. So anyway, I was just saying, could you clarify how the DAO is going to be managed? I've had a lot of experience with DAOs, and I find that one of the most difficult things is that when you get into it, it's not actually, doesn't end up being actually decentralized. A lot of it ends up being very top-down controlled anyway. And the biggest voices have the biggest voice. So I'm really curious about sort of like voting structures and things like that. And also just even from like where the community will be housed, like what platform are you thinking? Just like Discord, like most other DAOs? Anyway, that's sort of generally what I was thinking about and what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, incredible question. This is where it gets a little interesting. So for me, again, with DAOs, right? Most of the time, you buy in to get governance rights, and you can be anybody to do that. You can just, all you need is capital in order to get in and pull it off. But if you look at, I don't know, let's say like a monastery, right? Like there are monks at a monastery. There are people with teacherly authority there that are like very clearly recognized. There isn't really much of that in the current current system of DAOs. And if I could think of people with teacherly authority, I would probably think of the people that are featured on the podcasts of the Liminal Web. So to me, it would seem like the first step into actually making a carefully thought out organization would be to allow all of the people that are featured on the podcasts, as well as the stewards of those podcasts, so stewards and scholars, right, to be the first ones in, to then decide collectively what this thing can look like and the ways in which to onboard people. So that was my first pass of this. Obviously it's completely open, and I have, it's completely up in the air for deciding, but we can kind of get into the nitty gritty a little later if we'd like to. But that was my thoughts behind it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Maya, you had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Jared, good to see you.
You too.
My question is, what DAOs do you look to that are sort of inspiration or good examples of elements of what you're thinking of?
I love that question because there is one called the Dream DAO, which is really, really awesome. On my onboarding page, I kind of at the very end, like minting an NFT and joining a DAO, I use those as examples because there's this one guy, Gary Sheng, and I met him through Balaji's beta lecture series, as well as the fact that he knew John Vervaeke, and like there's a lot of like key things where I was like, wow, this is a really interesting pairing here. I don't really see this very often. And he has started the Dream DAO to basically bring Gen Z into Web3 thoughtfully, and to basically the educational side of things he's been kind of working on really well. But the mechanisms that are in there, he's already got an incredible head start. So if you want to kind of explore what's possible with a DAO in terms of bringing good into the world, I would highly recommend checking out the Dream DAO. And he actually has made a little section within his Discord saying, welcome, STOA members. So I prepped him just to make sure that I'm funneling people his way as an example.
Nice. Thank you. I'll check it out.
No problem.
Elliot, you had a question. If you can unmute yourself.
Hey, yeah. Good to see you, Jared and Peter. So this was maybe a question more for maybe the proposal and maybe once there's an actual DAO, but many of us saw Joe did an awesome job of kind of identifying who's in the liminal web at the moment. I'm wondering how you see, there are probably dozens, if not hundreds of groups or sites or platforms that might fit the vibe that haven't yet been identified in this kind of centralized way. How do you see those being integrated in time as they emerge?
Incredible question. You are so right. There are so many people that are doing similar things in this space, especially big shout out Global Unity. Love it, huge fan. But I really think that we kind of just have to make a step forward and give it a shot wherever we are, and then kind of adjust from there. So, I mean, I don't have any kind of a good answer to that. I mean, but I think that there's enough people in this community that are incredibly well-versed with governance, with community management, with fairness. I mean, that we'll be able to collectively come up with a good way to do this in the future. And again, maybe it's just as simple as filling out a form and like having a lazy consensus, so that unless somebody really ex-nays it, like maybe people get brought in relatively easily. So a lot of possibilities, but I can run through that proposal a little bit later too, at least what I've got so far. So
awesome, thanks. I'm sure it'll evolve in time anyway.
Exactly.
Reese, you had a question.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I'm just interested in, I guess it's a pretty big one, but how you guys think we can use Web3 to help people transition. I think that's a big part of this, is that, I was talking to a few people on Twitter earlier today just about a period of people needing to kind of de-school, deprogram, de-job even. How you see Web3 could potentially support this as a kind of way of on-ramping or bootstrapping people into new ways of being, because I see that, lots of people are stuck in game A and feel like they'd love to just jump the shark into game B, but there's a kind of transitioning period that needs to happen. So how could Web3 support this?
Yeah, it's a big one. That's a meaty question, but I'll give it a shot. I see a lot of potential for this if we kind of if we work together in one way or another. So by joining up with some kind of DAO that has similar values and missions, and allowing for allowing for further value to be accumulated and distributed between the members, if you can prove in one way or another that the group itself is valuable, and you can kind of engineer good enough tokenomics in one way or another to support a community, that's kind of the pathway I would say. So for example, let's say everyone who is at least a member of one of these groups or something, gets into the DAO and gets a opportunity to mint an NFT for free based off of having a membership before a certain time period, right? And then over time, as money gets put into this DAO, the actual future NFTs that can be released, there can be an airdrop to people who are holding a membership token of some sort so that they can sell that NFT later and get a infusion of cash or something. Or there could be, for example, if there are people who are giving like therapy, for example, maybe there's some therapists in our group, or community managers, or whatever those people are. You can actually, there's the network of people that are similarly aligned. There's a lot of opportunity within this network. So I'm spitballing here. I'm sure a lot of you guys have way better suggestions, but I think that the only way to find out is to dive in and do it. So.
Totally. Thanks for having a shot.
Sure.
Thanks, Reese. Rick, you had a question. You're on mute. Now you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And thanks to everyone who kind of just gave a shout out there. So my question was, and again, I'll preface this by saying, fairly new to Web3, fairly new to the space that all of you have probably inhabited for a long time. But I am in PR. I do a lot of stuff with companies that are in Web3. I'm following the crypto world. It's a lot of white guys and a lot of white guys with money. So not that that's all of this group, but you know, how do we, or how would a liminal DAO be open to a diverse cross-section of not just people, but thoughts and experiences and approaches?
Incredible question. I mean, I don't have a good answer, but I think that there can be specific pushes in that direction to bring this to the awareness of different communities, to, you know, the actual, there's a fine balance, I think, between keeping a community with a shared vocabulary and mission and vision, and also expanding out to be able to be inclusive of anyone else that wants to join. And I think that that's a huge, you know, an essential kind of thing that needs to be thought about. And again, that's what the cool thing is, if and when we start the DAO, that could be an entire channel, an entire thread of people who are able to discuss that, vote on it, and make it happen. And again, it's not like some one person has the answer for all these things. It's going to emerge because we're all participating. So that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. Great, thanks. I appreciate the thoughtful answer.
Sure.
Daryl, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered if you see the emergence of certain oracles coming soon that will help us do some magic with liminal space, liminal web and Web3.
When you say the word oracle, do you mean the technology oracle or the mystical oracle? Like
Yeah. Well,
there's a couple different terms.
Sure. So in blockchain, an oracle is the device that goes out and checks the real world for some fact or truth.
Yep.
And I feel like that's been a missing link for a lot of this stuff to emerge and do powerful things for us.
Yeah, in that context, for sure, because you never know with liminal web, right? We can go all over the place with our conversations, but I think one that I know of, Chainlink, right? They have a lot of development happening. I don't know. I mean, there's a couple different. One of my friends, I think, well, he might be here actually. Dylan Tull has a really great idea about creating AI oracles. I'm not sure exactly where the proposal is yet, but I think that's the future for sure, to be able to actually link the real world with this virtual blockchain and be able to kind of pull it off. So.
Any follow-up, Daryl? Was it Dylan that you said? Was he here right now? Does he want to maybe jump on?
I thought he was. I thought I saw him join, but it could be wrong.
I'm here.
There he is. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Did you want to share anything, Dylan, that what Jared was just talking about?
Yeah, I'm pretty deep currently exploring kind of the AI Oracle space and what's possible with blockchain in particular, trying to build some tech agnostic stuff. More so looking at the data visualization side, because I think that's a really important part of the equation that we have to solve to be able to react and interact with these DAOs and large network data sets. So that's something I'm definitely deeply exploring at the moment. Happy to, if anyone wants to send me an email, I'm happy to answer any more questions, but yeah.
Very cool. Feel free to message Dylan in the chat. So maybe we'll do a couple more questions, then we'll pivot to the proposal. Reed, you have a question?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So I'm really curious about how you kind of envision this looking. Like, we can talk about like what the benefits are and stuff like that, but if I were to explain to my mom, okay, so like my mom knows what Amazon looks like, and she knows what Facebook looks like, and she knows how to interact with those interfaces. I'm curious about how you envision Web3 changing how we interact with things, how it would look to my mom in a way that I could explain to her now.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, that's almost like, I mean, the imagery that was coming to my mind is like, you know, Web3 right now is a seed, and it's like, how do I describe this plant? And it's like, well, it's not really a plant yet, but I can imagine different types of plants that might be possible. I think to me, the most, the easiest way, at least like for people who I would ask your mom, what are you passionate about, right? Like what do you care about? What communities do you care about? What things do you care about? Do you care about sports teams? Do you care about all these different things? Like even in a sports teams context, like NFTs and Web3 allow for a deeper participation within your community. And if and when, or I guess when the technology matures enough. So let's say I am a huge fan of a sports team and I buy a ticket, but I, you know, was an early adopter. So I got airdropped a special something or other. And there's all these ways to actually feel more connected and allow for greater access to things you care about, and allow for those things that you care about to have greater access to you as well. So it's kind of more of a fine-grained approach to life, right? Like there's not, instead of these shotgun marketing, you know, tactics or certain things, these projects can kind of self-select the people that are wanting to be a part of them. So the liminal web bundling itself, I mean, that kind of attracts people who believe in the same missions and visions to participate in this group, and then within that group, you know, get a status or a recognition for the hard work that you're doing, versus the way it is now, where I have no idea. Like I have no idea, Reed Gower, like I truly don't know much about you. But if I saw on your profile that you had maybe the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis badge and you know, something else, like, oh, that means something about you, that like we have something in common, we have a shared context, to just kind of imagine that, but on a really broad scale, what's possible. So I don't know, it's there's a lot of crazy stuff happening right now.
Any follow-up, share, Reed?
Yeah, I don't mean to be difficult, because I know I'm asking you to go into the impossible and like envision a future that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that like Web3 seems to be like the answer to many of our problems, and also full of a lot of scammy stuff also.
Big time.
And when I like my mom, she just like, she likes watching funny videos on YouTube. She likes messaging her friends. That's about it. And it seems like this Web3 overtake is kind of inevitable, But if my mom's needs are already perfectly satisfied by Web 2, do you maybe envision a space where these are kind of intermingling? Like, for some reason, I imagine Web3 just kind of taking over. But if my mom's needs are satisfied, like she doesn't care about like an NFT or like a digital goodie or anything like that. She just wants to message her friends and stuff.
I mean, in the same way, like I would say, like, you know, our cell phones or our landlines going away, right? Like there are still landlines, they still exist. Horses and buggies do still exist. You can get them if you want. It's not like it's going to be fully, you know, there you go, you got a landline right there. It's not like it's going to be completely erasing Web 2 or the current instantiation of the internet. However, if you want to do something better, you will probably use Web3 tools. So I could still have a bank account, but I'd rather not. Like, I'd rather interact with people in which I can directly send them the you know, things that they want for their services, and vice versa. And if I get something and I can immediately exchange it to any other thing, right? I can immediately exchange to cash or whatever, or US dollars, right? Then sure. But again, I'd rather hold on to something that will maintain its value and have the value grow than have something that is just basically being stolen from me at every moment. People don't really think about inflation as counterfeiting, but that's basically, you know, if you want to dig in more in there, that's Robert Breedlove kind of, he really hits that on the nail on the head there. But I guess I'll do a really quick version. If you are a wine seller and you're selling wine for $20 a bottle, and there's $2 trillion in the supply of money, right? If that supply of money suddenly goes up to $4 trillion, then you have a couple options as a wine seller. You could keep selling at the same price, which means that you go out of business because you don't have as much value to your money. You could double your price to keep up with the supply of money, in which case you go out of business since no one wants to buy from you since you're so expensive, or you water down your wine. Those are your options. It's kind of what's happening right now. I mean, we kind of forget that we just take money for granted, but it went from, I think the money supply went from 2 trillion or 4 trillion to like 20 trillion in 2020. Like it's an insane jump in the amount of money that's circulating right now, in US dollars, I should say, that it just doesn't hold its value that the way that a cryptocurrency can, or the cryptocurrencies that are the tokenomics that are being developed right now. So that's going to bring people into the space to actually hold assets and exchange assets that bring value up. And then those people can take care of the people that don't want to do that. I mean, that's really the only options we have. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Reed. So it might be a good time to pivot to your proposal, Jared.
Sure.
And then we'll close out and stop the record and have an open conversation for at least 30 minutes.
Perfect. I will bring it up now. Let's see. And you can find this at capsup.xyz, and it will be available there. So this is where we're at. The vision, the rectification of names. It's I talked briefly about this, but I would love a better summary here. And I think this is worth a lot of comments and a lot of talking in general of what a vision for a DAO would be. But the mission would be to rebundle the liminal web into a Web3 entity. So creating a DAO, issuing things like reputational NFTs, and fundraising, which allows for anti-rivalrous dynamics between liminal platforms, novel incentive structures for community participation, interoperability and impact within the broader Web3 community and world. So then I put this is kind of like a meta team section, the builders. These would be people that are working to actually create the DAO. So we have the alchemists, which are kind of deciding the nitty gritty here. Generators, who are the people who are actually building. Shepherds, kind of sorting member data and keeping other teams on track. Mediators, kind of helping the liminal web as broadly get familiar with the necessary Web3 tools. And then ambassadors, which are kind of supporting interoperability between Liminal DAO and the rest of the Web3 kind of space. So for the alchemists out there, which is basically everybody, we kind of have to decide what this thing looks like. I just came up with these roles. Obviously, it's free to change, but there would be scholars, which are guests featured on Liminal podcasts or platforms, stewards, which are podcast or platform hosts. I said adjuncts, which are kind of members who have contributed to the collective intelligence of the Liminal Web broadly, and benefactors, which will be members who have financially supported the Liminal Web. So all in terms of the actual onboarding, this is very open to change, but all scholars and stewards get whitelisted, which means it allows these people to get NFTs for free. All you have to do is pay gas fees, right? But we can do it on Polygon, so there could be no gas fees. Technical stuff, doesn't matter. All scholars and stewards get whitelisted to mint scholar and steward NFTs for free that will give access to special channels in a Discord. That's the tooling now that is the most common with DAOs. Once they have joined the Discord, they can architect and vote on membership decisions and governance structures, which is what is the most important, honestly, to get right. And then each scholar and steward get to whitelist 3 adjuncts, right? Or for minting adjunct NFTs that will give access to special channels, etc. So these are like the most trusted people of the Liminal Web get to kind of join here. And then eventually Liminal DAO creates an affordable public benefactor NFT collection that grants public access to the DAO and funds the treasury, which is governed collectively by everybody. So again, just a shot. We'll see what options we have from here. But then I said, I called these things artifacts versus NFTs, because NFTs just, I think it's time to kind of rebrand that. And artifacts within a community like this is kind of a cool idea. So the DAO can create non-fungible tokens that represent limitless utility. Something like an icon, right? Which are NFTs created and sold by members of the DAO. So let's say Tyson Yunkaporta, for example, partners with an artist in the DAO to create an NFT collection of symbols drawn in the sand, with all proceeds going to an indigenous nonprofit. I just came up with that. Don't hold me to it, but just a rough idea. Keepsakes, POAPs issued by members of the DAO. So POAPs are proof of attendance protocols, which everyone here will get one if you message me. I have links to POAPs to give you guys your first NFT. So it is basically proving that you were here, and it'll be on the blockchain forever. So 20 years from now, I can give $1 million to everybody who is on this call or something if I have it, right? That kind of thing. It allows for future interaction and to kind of keep track of things. So for example, Rebel Wisdom can issue a sense-making 101 keepsake to all Rebel Wisdom members who have completed that course, which grants access to a private channel within the DAO, allows for future airdrop eligibility, etc. So then here are the teams, generators. This is all technical stuff, but enjoy checking this out, giving as many comments as you can. I will keep up with this whole thing. And then if you actually want to join in, click here, and this thing will bring you to a little type form of getting involved. So just fill in your stuff, and I will keep track of it. And whoever else wants to join and help out with this, I'd love to hear from you and do this thing. So what do you guys think?
Awesome. And is that Google Doc, is it shared in the chat somewhere?
Yeah, so it is actually on capstop.xyz, but I will also put it into the chat.
And I'll include that on the video description too, if you're watching this on the video.
No problem.
So I'll stop the recording now, and then I have to leave at 30 minutes, but this can go as long as it wants to go on. Any kind of questions you have for the STOA, Jared, or perhaps maybe any stress testing questions, any invitation for that? Like, what would you like us, the collective intelligence, to respond to this?
Well, I mean, I want you guys to take it and run with it. Again, I was inspired by Joe Lightfoot's article, people like Michael Garfield. I'm so glad you're here, by the way. Incredible input into this. I've had like a lot of people do some, I mean, look at the comment history in this thing is incredible. There are some really great thoughts and thinkers here. So I'd love to add as many things as possible here. But yeah, I mean, really beat this thing up. If we're going to do this, I want to do it well. So I'm happy to help launch in any way possible, but I want this thing to kind of have a life of its own. So
awesome. So I'm going to stop the record to open up the space.